it was a little by little kind of shift of like, I'm going to cut away things that I was successful in before and getting leads and just going out there and taking a chance of seeing if this market was really viable.
Hey Feasters, and welcome to episode 5 of season 4 of Living the Feast. Imagine you were ranked number 1 in Google for web design and web development for WordPress in Sacramento. Many would kill for that spot. Well, today's co-host is John Locke, founder of Lockedown Design. John decided to shift away from being a generalist design and developer, purposefully relinquishing his number 1 ranking, and decided to move strictly to SEO. The reason he did this was because he wasn't getting high quality leads into his business. He tested a few other niches along the way, and we talk about the exact steps he took in doing that and how he decided on whether or not they were viable for him. He's since settled on SEO for manufacturers, and his business has grown leaps and bounds in a very short time. I'm sure John's story will resonate with you as he shares some of his fears, thoughts, and actions along the way. So let's dive in. This episode is brought to you by Feast, the premium online coaching and community designed for web developers, designers, marketers, and freelancers of all type wanting to specialize their business and build recurring revenue that's profitable and sustainable. Today's market is ever changing, and yesterday's advice won't cut it. Feast members get access to the roadmap and training library, which includes everything you need to niche down, build recurring revenue, and become that go-to respected person for your services. That, together with monthly roundup calls, exclusive workshops, expert chit-chats, and our Slack community, you'll have everything you need to live the life of your own design. If you're serious about not competing on price and having clients that respect you and your expertise, then join Feast. Head over to feastcourse.com today. Hey Feasters, and today's featured co-host is John Locke. Welcome, John.
How you doing?
John is the owner of Lockedown Design. He helps manufacturing companies with search engine optimization so that they get more requests for quotes. And I actually had to look that up, John, because I saw it was abbreviated on your site, and we'll dive into that here in a minute because I like that. He does this by leveraging organic traffic from search. John, why don't you elaborate a little bit more and tell us why you do what you do?
Yeah, definitely. So I started building websites about 7 years ago now. And before that, I had a whole career separate from that. But about a year, maybe a year and a half ago, I started positioning toward SEO because the people that I was running into as clients, that's kind of what they were after anyway. It was the web traffic. And I had some forays with side projects where I had done SEO. So I just decided to put the pedal to the metal on that and just change the positioning entirely. Do you want me to elaborate on how I came to the manufacturing part of it, or?
Yeah, well, before we jump into that, I assume that you did design, a little bit of development and implementation for all sorts of different clients, right? How did you get into that? I mean, and what was your strategy when you were working with all those kind of clients?
Great question. So, yeah, I had a whole bunch of different clients. I did kind of 50-50 between my own clients and subcontracting to other agencies. And like I said, I started late to the game, pretty much learned like HTML, CSS, a little bit of JavaScript, a little bit of PHP, custom WordPress theming. That's kind of where I cut my teeth a lot. And I would basically get local clients from just scouring around town and people coming into my website. And then, the other half of it, just answering job boards and establishing relationships with other agencies. And dealing with that was okay. But a lot of it is, it's almost like where I was at was more of just a generalist, and it wasn't really where I wanted to be as far as that.
So, I mean, everything was word of mouth or in town or local in that kind of thing. So you couldn't, from the way that sounds anyways, that you couldn't figure out a way to know where that next project was unless it was at a local meeting or somebody referring you, correct?
Yeah, that's pretty true. Like I said, there was a bit of a foundation there. I almost always had an ongoing relationship with one agency or another. And then, the other half would be local clients. And it was a lot of kind of scouring around to find that next thing. So what really happened about a year and a half ago is I killed off all my subcontracts to agencies. So this was not only just a pivot to SEO for manufacturing, but it was pivoting completely away from, doing WordPress development, because where I was at is I was ranking number one here in Sacramento for WordPress web design and WordPress development. But the leads that I was getting were not always the highest quality. And I kind of wanted to move away from that and just see what would happen. So, like I said, I changed all the positioning on my site to be about SEO. And I, kind of gradually downplayed, the local marketing as well, because the homepage was all focused on, the local market. And I, downplayed that. And what happened is I fell out of the top part. I fell out of number one basically for local market in WordPress design, though I think I'm back up to somewhere on page one there now. And I changed everything to SEO. If you go back at my blog, you'll see also too that I started writing about SEO almost exclusively about maybe 15 months ago, 16 months ago, just to try and tell Google like, hey, this is what I'm doing now. And I was lucky enough. I had a couple local clients that I got right off the bat. What happened after that is I saw kind of what was happening overall in the job market. I have one fabricator that's on my client roster now. So I said, I will position around manufacturing, because at the time, everybody was really hyped up about the, tax breaks for, American jobs and stuff like that. And the way I was thinking is, people are going to have more marketing budget for that. So what's happened as a result is I used to get no inquiries, coming through my site from other time zones. It was just here in the local market. But what's happened since then is I'm getting inquiries from all 4 time zones in the US. I've gotten inquiries from, places that are out of town, so to speak. And that would have never happened before. And part of the reason is there's a handful of other SEO agencies out there that are kind of positioned around that, but there's not a ton. There's enough to service that market, but there's definitely room for more, because I see that there are other people succeeding in it. And you look at the majority of the manufacturing websites out there or industrial websites, and they're not very good. I'm just saying, they're not very good. People don't do SEO. They don't write content. They don't link build. They don't focus on user experience. A lot of the sites are, were built probably 10 or 15 years ago. So there's room to grow. But I had seen a little glimpse of it just from working with these other agencies, some, industrial sites and manufacturing sites that other people are building. So I know that there are people like interested in it. So it was a little by little kind of shift of like, I'm going to cut away things that I was successful in before and getting leads, and just going out there and taking a chance of seeing if this market was really viable.
Sure. Okay. So, I mean, there's definitely a lot of questions that I have in there.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I mean, when you decided to essentially chop off a limb of your business, essentially the agency subcontracting work, what was the reason behind that?
It's really simple. I left the blue collar world because I was a union guy for like 19 years. I worked in bakeries, managed bakeries for Safeway. I worked in the Wonder Bread plant, union guy the whole time. I think the most that I ever earned in any of those jobs was around 60 grand or so in a year. And the whole reason why I left all that behind was to be able to, like your listeners, like yourself, I wanted to be able to set my own salary. If I could go out there and get it, then I can, bring it in. And that's what I was trying to do originally. So basically where I was at was all the local clients that I had before, I still have those. But I was spending like way too much time with agencies, and the agencies that I was working for, I wanted to bump up my rate. And because I was kind of getting a general idea of how much these, other agencies are profiting off of the work of, the people who are building the sites, such myself, other people out there. And I wasn't getting credit for it, enough. Some of the agencies were really cool about it, and, they'd give me credit, but some were really just kind of, even though I'm making them tons of money, and I would say like, hey, like, this is where I want to move my rate. And it was like kind of hemming and hawing. And well, if you just do basic site builds, and then if you think it's going to be like, really crazy, like over that, because they would come up with all this stuff that they wanted to do and
they
not compensate.
Keep their profit margin.
Yeah. And they don't want to compensate extra. So it was basically, you know what? I just got to be done with this and just 100% like own the client relationships myself and just be done with working with agencies. Unless I'm talking face to face with the client, I don't really want it because it's not going to get me where I want to go. That's basically it. I was sacrificing where I originally wanted to go, and I had gotten sidetracked. If I had wanted to do that, I would be an employee somewhere, but that's not what I originally set out to do. So.
Yeah. And I went down a very similar path too, especially when starting out, because I came from the agency world then. So I knew both big agencies as well as small agencies and their problems in their development teams, basically just being overworked. And I was like, okay, well, they have the clients, they have the sales, and I could fulfill the development side of things. And I don't have to worry about sales right now. I could just do the development work. But what I found was that, hey, I was going to have now, instead of one boss, I was going to have 10 bosses with their own timelines. And most of the time, their timelines were absurd. So I was just like, okay, this is not worth it from both a stress level perspective, but also a revenue perspective. So I definitely know where you're coming from with that. So the thing that really interests me is that you decided to not just focus in on SEO, but SEO in manufacturing. Now, I've been following Viper Chill or Glenn Alsop for a long, long time. And you know what? I think that's the first time I've ever pronounced his last name out loud, but for a long time. And I'll link up his blog in the show notes here, but it's an SEO, great case studies that he pushes out all the time. But he has like this top 10 list that he goes into with niching over the past couple of years anyways. And he tries to find niches that are the next thing to work in SEO, in the realm of SEO. And for me, when I look at this top 10 list, I just don't look at it from the SEO perspective because one, I'm not one, but I like to hear his thoughts on, hey, this is an industry or a niche that is up and coming, or how there is an opportunity for other businesses to, work in this space and grow their own businesses. And one thing that he keeps on mentioning is manufacturing. And it was like, oh, hey, maybe John saw the same list that I did and he picked that, or was it, I'm hearing it from how you describe yourself as one being blue collar, two, the manufacturing space in and of itself. They definitely have older looking websites and probably have problems in and amongst themselves that not just SEO, but other things as far as marketing is concerned to help grow their businesses. What was it specifically about the manufacturing industry that really attracted you or drew you in to help serve them?
Well, I mean, this isn't even the first time that I've tried to niche down. and I've talked about this before in other places too, but I tried to niche down in e-commerce before. And for whatever reason, it just didn't work out, where I wanted it to work out. And the process for me doing that, trying that niche before, is the same process that I tried this time, which is basically looking at the intersection of who have I worked with before that I like to work with, where is there an opportunity, who can afford to pay, do I want to build a client roster of these type of people, and just looking at the pros and cons and coming down to one category that I wanted to try. And even going way back, I tried niching down to bakery websites a long, long time ago, because I figured hey, I understand it perfectly. But that never worked out either, because a lot of them just don't have the money. Right. so it didn't work out. But with manufacturing, here's the thing. And like I was talking with my wife about this too. We can market this. It's not bound by a location. We can market this to pretty much anywhere and help them out, because I have seen that there's interest in it. We get inquiries, and it's really weird. I'm getting more and more people signing up to my email list now that are specifically from that, which never happened before. I just saw that, at least in the short term, that there's a renewed interest in this. There's more marketing budget for that. These are people that I can kind of relate to what they do, and I can speak to them in a down-to-earth way and not be, some techie nerd guy that speaks a different language.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And you do just that too. Like, everybody for listening, definitely go check out his website. He has it down to a T. And I kind of teased it in the beginning with the request for quotes, or quotations, I think the actual term is. But on the website in and of itself, he just puts it front and center there. Help manufacturing companies with search engine optimization so they get more RFQs. Now that's the language that they would use. And that, it's not surprising to me why you're getting people to sign up to your list, because you're speaking their language. They automatically identify with you right away. How did you, when you first started this shift, how did you start learning that language? Was it just something that you were aware of beforehand, or did you just have conversations? I mean, what was the thing?
Yeah, it was some of the things I was not aware of before. Part of it, like you mentioned, is having conversations and just hearing how people refer to things, and doing just kind of research and observing how other websites that are successful refer to those same things. So just, doing the field research, both in person and reconnaissance wise, just looking at, what's really going on and what they're really after. Honestly, that's the goal of any type of manufacturing site, is to get people requesting information and specifically wanting a quote to see if they're going to buy a chunk of services, or they're going to buy a product, or have you build out their product. They just want to know how much it's going to cost. So just, that's part of speaking that language. So
yeah, and that's identifying, right? Like you said, that e-commerce space, like that's where I grew up, so to speak, and I've kind of niched down even further than that at this point. But knowing what it is that they want, and if you can essentially identify that for them immediately, just like you did in that headline, like you can't go to your website and miss that headline, right? Like if I was a manufacturer, I'd be like, oh, this guy's speaking my language, right? Like he knows what I want and what I'm aiming for. That's a huge key component in niching down. And, even in amongst the rest of your website, like it's funny, what I help a lot of my clients with is landing pages and copy, even though I'm not a copywriter, but how to get somebody to do the conversion on the page, whatever that might be, whether it's a buy now button, sign up for something, request for a proposal, whatever it is. I tell them you need to follow this formula. And it's basically just have them identify with you immediately, that you know what you're talking about, empathize with them with some problems, show them some sort of level of social proof, and give them that clear call to action. And that's exactly what your website does. It brings testimonials from your client roster that is other companies and people just like them, right? So it's not like, hey, this is an e-commerce site, and if I'm a manufacturer, I'm okay, well, I can see that he does SEO, but does he really know what I need? I mean, he did well for that person, but that's not my space. Was all of that was that thought process in your plan when you started this whole evolution of pivoting from WordPress designer in Sacramento to SEO for manufacturing?
I want to say like 100% that it was, but some of those things I just kind of noticed along the way, because I did redesign the site. That was part of the whole thing as well. But the testimonials and the case studies that I was trying to highlight were more along the lines of the clients that I was trying to attract. There's other stuff that I could put in my case studies, but it just doesn't fit the narrative that I'm trying to tell. And when it comes to testimonials, I'm trying to put the ones that are most like the clients that I'm trying to attract near the top.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I think it helps too as well that I'm getting more people that are just coming in for the straight SEO now. And the web design is part of that. Instead of breaking it all apart, like I'm going to build the site or do the design and then send you off to somebody else to do the SEO. Because a lot of times the web design is part of that. So yeah, so in a way, part of it is intentional, but it's just some of the things I noticed along the way. It's like, I should probably emphasize that a little bit more. And so that seems to have helped. So
yeah, and you've helped me with some questions that I've had on the interwebs too. And just to be able to, it's sometimes the simplest of things, right? Like, hey, this is what I do. This is who I want to attract. But then we muddy up the waters, and myself included, with all of this other stuff, other clients, other quotes that aren't relative to the person that you actually want to attract. And that in and of itself is being a generalist, right? You're trying to cater to as many people as possible when really you just want to cater to one.
Yeah, most definitely. And I'm going to throw in like something else here too. My friend Jonathan Denwood over at WP Tonic, he did something similar about a year ago. He was one of these generalist WordPress maintenance type of deals. And he started moving everything toward focusing on LMS, learning management systems, including like having people post articles and writing articles and comparing the different platforms and just the whole language of the site and interviewing guests on his podcasts that are all around that. And what he told me is he's getting a lot more leads because it's more focused. So I think as long as you pick something that's a viable market, I think, go for it because focusing on some sort of special niche is going to help you out because people will say that's for me instead of saying, how are you different from these 200 other places?
Right. Yeah. Firmly a believer in that. So when you said that you tried a couple of different other niches, right? You tried e-commerce, you tried bakeries way back when, you just mentioned the word viable. How did you know when something was viable and when it wasn't?
That's pretty easy. Like with the bakeries, what I did is I hit up all the local bakeries in town that had websites or needed websites. Some of them just straight up told me, oh, we don't need a website. We get all our business from foot traffic. Or, they would say, oh, we just don't have the budget. So I just gave up on that one really quick. I was just like, oh, well,
Yeah, no money, no work. Yep.
No, I'm not going to do that. The e-commerce one, I mean, there's a lot of people doing really good in that space, like yourself, Curtis McHale, Mode Effect over in Phoenix. A lot of people, specializing in that, they're doing good. I just wasn't, I kind of like tried to do it with the content. I just never was able to get enough business coming in to, just stick with it and just say, this is worth it to keep focusing on it this much. It was some, to me, it wasn't enough. It just, for whatever reason, maybe I didn't, focus down hard enough or give it enough time. But I just kind of went back to being a WordPress generalist at that point. So,
Yeah. I think that that's something that a lot of people struggle with because they're like, how long do I give it? Do I have to hit a revenue number? Do I have to have a certain number of clients? How do I know that this thing's going to work out for me? And sometimes you just have to kind of trust your gut. I've barked up the wrong tree a couple of times myself, and it sucks when it happens. You're just like, hey, this is not working the way that I thought. And if it doesn't, then it's time to cut bait and go try something else, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely it. I mean, I've been really blessed. A lot of the people that I've had with me for a while, and I do have clients that are on monthly retainer. I have enough of them to where even if I lost all my other business, I'm not starting from zero. Each month I have like a foundation, like no matter what. So that helps. But yeah, if like you said, if your gut is telling you it's time to make a change, it probably is.
Yeah. I've learned to trust my gut over the years, even though I've gone against it. Every time I've gone against it, it's never ended well. So
yeah, same.
This has been awesome, John. Before I let you go, what's next? What's the next 6 months or 12 months look like?
The next 6 months. So one of the things that I've done is, besides putting out, SEO content on my blog, is I've kind of resurrected my YouTube channel. I'm publishing once a week SEO tips there, without fail, once a week. I'm putting it out. If I can put out more, I will. I just published a video. This will be a couple months back by the time this episode airs, but it is a long video about how I do SEO audits, everything that goes into it, why I want to show, people everything that goes into it. Part of it came from people, saying like, how is this different from, XYZ company over here? Part of it was from just questions I got from other people locally, but it kind of just lays it out, what goes into SEO. And also with people who are signing for a long-term plan with me, usually that's 6 months. And then a lot of people stay on like a smaller retainer going onward. SEO audit is the very first thing that we do because it's like a complete diagnostic of your site, where you're at, where your competition's at, what is Google ranking for these keywords that you actually are wanting to go for. Here's a whole bunch of other keywords that you could go for. Here's the whole content gap of your site. Here's everything that needs to be improved as far as user experience. Here's all these, places where you should get links from. It just gives it a whole battle plan. And even people who order it as a standalone product, they get value from it because it just shows them either, here's what I need to do it myself, or if they're already working with somebody, here's a list of stuff that they can run through over the next, 6 months or so.
That's awesome. I'm going to be checking out that video for sure. We'll link up the video. We'll also link up the link to your SEO audits as well in the show notes for sure. Yeah. I mean, you've provided me with so much value just, in small little conversations here and there too, right? Like throughout Twitter. So definitely everybody, if you have an SEO question, John's your guy. He's very helpful and he'll at least point you in the right direction each and every time. So without fail, for sure. John, where can people reach out and say thanks?
You can find me at my website, which is lockdownseo.com. You can also go to YouTube. If you search hashtag Lockdown SEO, you'll find my channel. And you can find me on Twitter. I'm lockdown_.
Awesome. Great. And we'll make sure all of those links are in the show notes as well. And thanks for joining and sharing. This is something that I am focused in on and helping people figure out their specialty and their niche. And, your insights into how you tested the waters and how you validated or invalidated ideas as well is outstanding. And I know people will get a ton of value out of it. So thanks again, John.
Thank you for having me, Jason. I appreciate it.
And for everybody out there, until next time, it's your time to live in the feast. Thank you so much for listening to today. If you enjoyed this episode, then head on over to liveinthefeast.com and subscribe to the podcast. While you're there, leave John and I a 5-star rating and review in iTunes, as it will help others find this episode. Next week, we'll be back talking with Elliot Murphy of Kindly Ops, discussing how you can figure out the biggest and expensive pain point for your clients and build extremely specific services around that to grow a successful business. Until then, it's your time to live in the feast.